It's called a gotchi.
See, there it just goes.
Yeah.
Well, this is a new thing.
I want to
So
leave this meeting.
Just don't leave your computer on when you go to the can. It should warn you of that.
yeah,
It should
Rob is
recognize when you're
going
in a
pee.
bathroom and go, you are now in the bathroom and still recording.
That's
Like,
right.
because I don't understand these people.
Rob has been in the bathroom for 7 minutes.
at this point now, it's a dystopian nightmare where the artificial voice tells you everything that's happening and when it's happening. So it is unique to Zoom now, where this is the thing. But I don't know.
Wow. Hello, 21st century.
I'm just waiting for more of the Star Trek like calming voice from AI to tell me what's going on. So we're not there yet.
Was it Majel Roddenberry?
That is correct. Who was the AI for most of Trek, and now whatever. Right. Shout out to Star Trek Discovery, people. If you're not on it, it's great. So,
I want Bobcat Goldthwait as the voice of AI. I think that. You guys are recording.
That's a good Bobcat. Hey,
that's not bad.
That's a hidden
He's
talent.
back, folks. He's
hidden
back.
Talent.
He's coming back.
Wow, he's too busy being a director right now. Let's leave him alone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Heroes World Quarantine Podcast edition. I am your host, Stupe. With me are the other consortium, the other hosts of the podcast, the owners and proprietors of the Heroes World comic book store in Markham, Ontario. That would be John and Andre. Please say hello to the world.
Hello, world. Are you ready for us?
I don't think you're ready for the Shelly, as Beyonce would say. Rob Goodette is also with us. Could you please say hello to the world?
Hello, world. I hope you're ready for Andre and John.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you for automatically demonetized. But I would, really, if you're gonna do it, it's like bum 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 bum.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna go a song, you might as well go the other song, the hype jam. So anyways, welcome for joining.
Welcome for joining. And that's the end of the show, everybody.
Welcome. Hello and welcome. This is the Heroes World Quarantine Podcast, where
you have effed up your recording.
It's live, baby. Or pre-recording. Where we basically record all our conversations. This is what typically happens in the store if we're all together, having these casual conversations, having these these talks, and we decided to share it with the world because we cannot be together. So based on outside events. So here we are recording to the world to give you the feels of how it would be like if you were in a comic book store perusing the aisles and hearing four people just yell about stuff in the background. So this is your experience to Heroes World on a regular basis. So we're going to go through a lot of random topics. Nothing really good in media this week, so we decided to skip a lot of it. I know John was like, we could talk about Army of the Dead, and both Andre and I could say like, meh.
No, we can't.
It's not going to be a long review. It's not going to be a long review. So but we're going to talk about some different things. So here we go. A lot of mixed bag topics, and we'll maybe if things go by really fast, we will do a quick 1 word or 20-second review of Army of the Dead at the end. So maybe that'll be your treat. I already know what Andre's answer is going to be. So here we go. I was reading an article the other day from the folks at IO9, and they were talking about the Arrowverse. And I know Rob has watched a lot of it. I know I at once watched a lot of it. I know Andre did not watch any of it. I know
what I watched some of it.
He's actually watched more of it probably than me, I think.
Some of it, but I know you dropped off, Andre. And I know that John watched a bit here and there. So if you're not aware, the Arrowverse all stemmed from Stephen Amell's Arrow, which I think Andre and I past podcast talked about how much we enjoyed Arrow season 1, 2, 3-ish. And
1 and 2 at least.
And it led to the spawning of Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Batwoman, etc., etc., etc. Since then, the Arrow show has finished. Supergirl's finishing this season, to my surprise, and the Flash is looking to end in season 8. So the bigger question to all you gentlemen today is: do you care about this anymore? Is the Arrowverse, a thing? Should it be a thing anymore? Like, should it just die already? Should it just implode upon itself? John, give us your thoughts on the Arrowverse. Does it need to be here anymore? I think it had its moment. It did its big
Yeah.
shebang, where it was the multiverse thing, and now even Black Lightning was like brought in for a hot second, and now that's ending. So, John, give us your thoughts on the Arrowverse and its impending doom. Should it be
Yeah,
gone? Or should it
I don't know if it's got ratings decline, then maybe they do have to shake up the formula. But I think a lot of us just grew out of it because there was a point in my life where I was at the age where every show that I loved was a CW property.
Mhm.
You know, like One Tree Hill,
Mm.
Smallville, like Gossip Girl, all these shows. They were all under the CW branding. They all fit that style. So it maybe it's just for a different demographic, and we've progressed past that. So like I do hope that I actually hope they don't cancel because then they can keep going. They can, like, Lois and Clark is pretty different from what they usually do. Black Lightning was kind of a step in a different direction as well. So if they continue, maybe they change. But there was a time when there was, like, I don't know how many CSI shows on the Friday night schedule or whatever the timing was, and how many Criminal Minds shows like this. So it exists. So I guess why not? We could almost look at it like comics, like light for the younger audience, or for the new. It's like the new generation soap opera or whatever you want to call it, but with superheroes. So I'm fine with it. Stick around. If and I think he mentioned this once. He was on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast. Stephen Amell mentioned at one point during this whole COVID shutdown, he was like, "Hey, you know what? Since nothing's going on, maybe I have one more season of Arrow in me." So he mentioned that crossed his mind during this whole thing. So if he did come back, I would watch that season. So I don't know if that's worth something. So
As John says, it's because he knows that CSI is coming back. So John's
yeah,
all on board.
is it back? Oh god.
Yep.
CSI Las Vegas with Gil Grissom. He's back, baby.
Oh,
So,
okay. Yeah, hey man.
so OG
Hey, some people love
CSI
watching those.
is
You know,
back,
and that's
and
fine.
believe me, I will watch episode 1, and they better have the same entry song, or I'm gonna lose my damn mind. So,
Yeah,
as
if I was more up to date on the shows, then I would maybe speak on, like, what the storylines and what they need to do to get people, but I'm not, so I can't really say anything. So.
yeah, Rob, what's that band that plays that song? I don't know. I've never heard
Don't
of
be
them.
an idiot. It's the Who.
Who?
Yeah, some I think it's a indie band from the United Kingdom that
Yeah.
plays all the
Like a
songs.
one-hit wonder, right?
Yeah. They don't really do that much.
Well, considering that like if there was 3 or 4 different CSI shows and they all used hits from the same band, I would say it'd be more than a one-hit wonder, John.
Yeah, CSI Miami, CSI Las Vegas, and then there was
New York.
CSI New York with Gary Sinise,
Mm-hmm.
Lieutenant Dan himself. Yeah,
That's right.
it's a lot
Yeah.
of things. Okay, Andre, as before I fall down the CSI tunnel, and then CSI Cyber. I believe there
Yeah.
was one more.
Mm.
Yeah, it was a good time with Bow Wow. That's the person I think of. All right, Andre, give us your thoughts on the Arrowverse. Should it continue? Should it be destroyed? What's going on? What are your thoughts?
No, I think it should continue. Like John hit it on the head. It's for a different audience.
Mm.
You know, they're making this show for I think like that tween audience mostly, and sometimes it's good enough to carry and involve other age groups that can enjoy it. Like Rob enjoys watching it with his son, and I think that's perfectly what it's for. And if you take those away, what's going to replace it? I think the only thing that I would do with the Arrowverse is, or whatever DC's verse is, I think they just need to have a little bit more belief in their properties and their products, and I think they have to go at it with having a minimum of like kind of like a 3-year plan, and maybe say we were planning for 3 seasons and we have ideas up to 5, and then that's it. I think the problem with the current Arrowverse was it got really popular, and then they're like, oh, let's do Legends of Tomorrow, oh, let's do this, let's do that, and you're like, no, it was cool when you brought in these characters and it gave longevity to the other shows that you had, but you can't everybody just can't have a show, because then you just get watered down stories, or stories that seem very similar across all of the different shows. So being a CW show and being that they're, you know, property driven and they're proven to do well, I think it would be really cool if they had like a, not necessarily a 3-year story arc, but just say, hey, these are the beats we want to hit, and these are the stories we want to get to. Because you know, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think that Arrow suffered because the first season of Arrow, they did so much in that one season, and season 2 they did so much because it felt like they didn't know they were going to get more, and then they stretch out to all these seasons, and you're like, okay, this doesn't have the pace, it doesn't have the content, you know. And look at like how many seasons did Smallville go, John? Like
10.
10
seasons. Yeah, I think if they knew or planned for 5 strong seasons, just like, you know, one of my favorite shows, Supernatural, things still went on 8 seasons longer than it needed to, right? So I think if they just believed in what they had, and they've got the proven track record to know that these shows have an audience and they do stick if they are good, and they can make a good product. It's just they know who they're making that product for. They may not get the 45 to 50-year-old comic viewer permanently, but that viewer will stick in for a couple of those good season finales and crossover events. But also, you know, they know they're not making that for kind of like me per se, right? So don't bother trying to say, oh, it's not doing well in that demographic.
Good. Rob?
It's an interesting question you pose, because I actually think that the Arrowverse proper is on its way out. Andre, I'm sorry, I'm having my coffee delivered. Yes, please. Thank you very much.
Look at this guy.
Wow.
Did you at least tip the person?
How nice.
Wow.
Yeah, so the Arrowverse started off, as we all said, listen, with Stephen Amell's with Arrow, and then it spun off onto the Flash, and then that went into Legends, and then you had because you had those characters who were appearing in the Flash, like you had Firestorm, then went into Legends of Tomorrow, and then they introduced Supergirl. So you had all this connective thread. There is, aside from the Flash, and now John mentioned the new Superman and Lois TV show, which I think is actually very well done. It has a different feel than the other these shows that have come before it. Flash is the only existing Arrowverse show right now. You have got Supergirl, as you said, is winding down. Black Lightning just finished last week, and the Flash, it is a pale comparison to what it was in that first season, maybe even the second season. It's, even my son and I, we watch every Thursday, and we're just like, why are they doing this? Like, they're just like, they have almost hit that jumping the shark, so much so that for those who don't watch anymore, Grant Gustin is not even wearing his cowl anymore when he's running around half the time. He's running around in a Flash costume without a mask on. Okay. So
they're like, it's too much work to.
He's just like, I want my hair to look nice. So I actually, so CW, out of the Black Lightning show, there was Painkiller. That was going to be a pilot. CW didn't pick it up, so they've gone with Naomi, which is that new character that was co-created by Brian Michael Bendis, and Ava DuVernay is producing it. That's not really going to have a tie. So this is all a long way of me saying is I actually kind of think that the Arrowverse is ending naturally, unless they merge Naomi into the universe of Superman, which in the comics they kind of did. I just don't know if they would do that, and if it would continue that way to kind of keep the Arrowverse alive. But I kind of feel like it's pretty much done. Just the tonality of the Superman show is vastly different than what these CW shows were prior. So, I think it served its purpose. I think it gave us a lot of content. You got to see stuff that we never thought we would see. Like us growing up, kids, people who are watching this now who might be in their 20s, like who are watching this show, or even in their 30s, we didn't have this stuff. We had the Incredible Hulk up until like the 82. And then you got like those 3 movies in the late 80s. You had the Superboy TV series for 2 years, which had 2 different Superboys or 3 seasons, and that was like syndicated. And then you would have like Mantis. I'm gonna bring that back from a few weeks ago.
Bring back Mantis,
and you had like the Cloak, like you had all these like no name superhero shows, and you had heroes, but you didn't really have these existing IP shows. So I think we got really lucky. I think the 2008 or so up until now, we've been pretty blessed with a bunch of content. But I think it's done. And I think they've just overstayed their welcome a little bit in some of these shows. The Flash has really disappointed me. So
Shout out to the Bill Bixby universe, the original MCU.
That's
that
right.
was, he introduced Daredevil, he introduced Thor,
Thor.
all through Bill Bixby. I guess there was like a Natasha Romanoff character that was in too.
Yeah.
That was in that movie before. I think
That was the death of the Incredible Hulk.
Death of the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
So that was the Marvel Cinematic Universe before the Cinematic Universe. So shout outs
right.
to Bill Bixby, R.I.P. But my question, and Rob, I think you mentioned it too, and we see it now with Marvel. They've now, I think they saw the Berlanti universe or the Arrow universe. They're like, yeah, let's do these in episodes of 10. They saw Netflix. It's like, yeah, maybe these are a little too much. Maybe we'll do 8. Maybe we'll do 10 episodes. Is that the future? Do you think that's like right now Superman has 10 episodes? It seems like it's the right amount rather than doing 22 or 26 or 21. Is that the solution with these DC shows as well? It's like, because you can imagine the Green Lantern show is not going to be 22 episodes. It's going to be condensed. So I'll let John go first. What are your thoughts? Is less is more? Is that the solution to the Arrowverse? Because there's just so much content now on that side that I think even all of us, when we do reviews now, I think we only do the first episode because we can't do like that one. We did the first episode. We're like, this is fine, but we didn't do much more after that, opposed to, people could say, well, what you guys do all the Marvel stuff. Well, the Marvel stuff's 8 episodes. We can do 3 of those Marvel shows compared to 1 season of, the Flash.
Yeah, like I said, it's for a different audience. But I think what Andre said is perfect. That if the CW knows what their bread and butter is, so why not say, hey, we're doing 3 seasons of this. This is our storyline. This is arc 1, arc 2, arc 3, and it's all like instead of like you guys said, Flash, the best villain was in the first couple seasons, and now they burned him off. So it's stuff like that. So I think the formula can work. Like you could definitely watch superheroes doing regular superhero stuff, like Smallville. A lot of the episodes were just either romantic element based, or or dealing with everyday stuff. So they can definitely fit that in for this audience and on this particular network. So I think I don't think they have to.
You leave everything as is. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I leave everything in it and probably invest more in the story and commit more, like Andre was saying. You guys know this is your audience. You can throw these shows out, and instead of having 8 of them and seeing which one sticks, just go, hey, you know what, we're gonna stick to this one, and it's gonna go through this storyline. And maybe if it's not as well received, then you start adjusting your storyline instead of just canceling stuff. You know what I mean? Like, but that's TV changed, but maybe now it can change back. How many shows got renewed to a second season now during like COVID times when you normally would see them canceled? So they're getting a second chance to establish themselves.
Many shows that got canceled before it even got in production because it was too much because of COVID. Like we talked.
Yeah. But there are some shows that you're kind of like, oh, it wasn't super strong, but it's getting a second season. So now it's going to get some footing and be able to find its place. Like, so a lot of these shows, you go back and watch the early seasons, you're like, oh, it's kind of rough. They're finding like their way, and then they got to keep going.
Well, the ultimate example, of course, is the Seinfeld Chronicles. So everyone goes to the default for that one. All right, Andre, you've already said a lot, but do you think that cutting it down is the solution, or do you want to leave everything as is?
I think and it's great when you really listen to it and say, yeah, 22 episodes, and these are shows based on comic books. What if the CW went and did kind of the actual comic book thing? Like, hey, comic books come out once a month and they're 12 episodes or 12 issues. So I'm not saying only have one show a month, but what if they said, yeah, our seasons are going to be 12 episodes, and we're going to kind of mimic that comic thing. So whether or not you play those 12 episodes over 2 months or 3 months or something like that, or whatever it would take, or you stretch it out a little bit and do kind of like what Walking Dead and Game of Thrones did, where we're like, oh, we've got a mid-season finale type of, and you take a break or whatever. That might give them a little bit more traction to do, as John said, focus more on story and stuff. Or you could do, like, you could say, oh yeah, hey, Batwoman is going to be these 3 months, and then after Batwoman is Naomi, and then and that's the next 3 months. So you might have 9 months of
kind of like what Disney Plus is doing.
Yeah,
right?
but you space it out, and maybe that will allow you to kind of keep your viewers, because they're like, hey, we're just rolling into the next show, instead of saying, oh my God, I've got to watch Flash on Tuesday nights, Arrow on Wednesday nights, Supergirl on Friday nights, Superman on Saturday. So I'm giving up 4 hours a week, or I'm trying to PVR or stream these shows, right? But I think, yeah, in a way, I think less is more, because they can focus a little bit and stuff, and maybe that gives them a chance to react and edit and make the changes necessary to keep them on the proper path.
Rob, your thoughts?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One is that Superman Lois show is actually going to be 15 episodes this season.
15 seasons. We're going long game, folks.
No. Stu said 10. It's 15.
Wow, let's drop that news now, Rob, with the a world premiere. All of a sudden, it's like,
and I actually kind of feel. Yes, and I actually kind of feel bad. I actually forgot about the Batwoman TV show, but I think that just maybe speaks to the fact that some of these are just kind of forgettable. I think
too many.
There's too many. It's just also not for you, Rob. I don't know if we can use the term forgettable. I think you just have to look at.
No, you know what? I saw the part of the first season, and it wasn't. I didn't like it. John and I watched the first 3 episodes, I think, or so of the, and I actually quite enjoyed it. But it just maybe it's something I would binge. When it eventually drops on Netflix. It just wasn't my weekly appointment viewing. So that's kind of what I mean by that.
And to be fair, Rob, sorry to interrupt, the ratings for Superman have fallen off a cliff because the first couple, episode 5 it got really strong. March 23rd, I think, was the last episode.
Yeah.
And they didn't come back till like May, and people forgot about
last week.
So you can't, I think, out of sight, out of mind. Like, I think to Andre's point, once a month is an amazing idea. But the problem is, who's gonna remember it once a month? Like, you lose the imagine
momentum. You lose momentum.
Well, I didn't mean for the show to come out once a month.
But that's an interesting idea. Imagine if we watched Captain America and the Winter Soldier, and it came out once a month. Andre, you would be like, "This is stupid." Like, we had to wait a month before we saw it. Like, this would be crazy. But I think, to your point, it is better when you do it like the Disney Plus model, where it's like 3 months and then the next show. You can never get tired of it, as opposed to, but the DC stuff. But yeah, Rob, go for it. Sorry.
I was gonna say, we have to at least, there is an underlying credit that needs to be given to what the CW did, because if not for the CW, these upcoming HBO TV series would not be coming out. The Green Lantern and everything else of that. I think no, I because you have Berlanti. Berlanti is the one that's is producing and everything else. And I think he started this whole venture, like we said, with the Arrow TV series. He created these worlds. I mean, so I think that he may not have had the confidence by executives if they wanted to kind of continue the superhero realm in a more of a more adult way with the HBO series. And so I think that's, if not for, I think there's a direct line between the Arrowverse to what we're getting in the upcoming HBO shows. But that being said, I agree with what Andre's saying. 22 episodes is a long time. We also grew up in an era where they started calling it your fall finale, but it would end around the Christmas time, and then you'd be a hiatus for 6 weeks. It wouldn't come back until January, sometimes February, of a TV series, right? So, there is a bit of an out of sight, out of mind, but I think that's more indicative of today's viewing audience than it was 15 years ago, when it would happen to Lost or The West Wing or whatever, or even 24. They dropped off so badly, they realized that they had to start their season in January and end it in May, because starting it in September and stopping it before the 8-week break was too much of a drop off. So that is indicative now of these Superman numbers of today's viewing audience. And so I support, and I think Andre is right. You do 15 episodes, and I understand it's because of COVID, they had to take that's why there was this gap, because they shut production down. But if you take 15 weeks straight and you show it over the 4 months, and then that's it, then listen, it worked for Game of Thrones. It's worked for most HBO TV series. And then you end up waiting 8 months, sometimes a year, for the next season. I think that's probably the best way to go, because that's the viewing habits of today's average viewer.
Can I pipe in for a second? I like what you said there, Rob, about the showrunner Berlanti, because I think you do owe a lot of props to this Arrowverse, and I almost don't like the term Arrowverse. Like, I know it was spawned from Arrow, but it's I really look at it as basically DC TV, and or DC television, and the connective threads that are there. I don't think they can pull off, if they go with this HBO, I don't think they can pull off 3 shows or 4 shows each within a separate its own universe. Like, they have to use that, they have to connect it. Like, people are inundated and they know the MCU, right? So you can't have Green Lantern doing stuff and he goes down to Earth or whatever and doing his thing, and you never mention, or you maybe never see another hero. Like, I think it has to be consumed and started, or not started, it has to be created,
some connective thread
in there. Sure, they don't have to be, Green Arrow doesn't have to show up in Green Lantern, or Superman doesn't have to, but the viewers have to know that this is all happening in the same galaxy around the same time, unless you make it a period piece. And I think that would make and give this show strength. And then it would also make people say, yeah, I'm not going to check out that other show. I'm not usually into space, but I'll check out Green Lantern because whatever the other show that they're talking about is referencing it, or whatever, right? So I think you need that. I think that's just how people are looking at superhero stuff now, and Marvel has taught us that. And also this Arrowverse, let's face it, they pulled it off. And I will say this, I'm on record on this, the DC TV and this Arrowverse is way better than anything we got from Marvel up until the Netflix stuff and the now Disney Plus stuff.
Right.
So like they own TV, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You didn't hold a candle to this stuff, right? And
I think you make a very good point again about the connective thread. The Arrowverse had 5 kicks at the can with crossover episodes, multiverse, bringing everybody in, and they finally nailed it with the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now, obviously, we know it's as close to a decent adaptation as you're going to get to that 86 story, but they did a really good job. And again, it took them like 5 kicks of the can to kind of figure out how best to do it. Each year you had that crossover episode. You're like, okay, it's Crisis on Earth X. And you're like, okay. But when they finally did it, they did it really well. So I really honestly kind of think that was the apex. So that was the point of the best part of the Arrowverse collectively. And since then, So you're right. Listen, the HBO Green Lantern show will not be tied into their HBO Gotham series. I mean, it's going to be 2 different universes. So I don't know. What's going to happen in the future.
With that. I disagree with you, Andre, on the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but we'll respectfully disagree because you did not watch the Ghost Rider
era,
like life model decoy arc, and that was better than anything.
What season was that, though, Stu? Season 6?
Season 200.
Like 5.
So it's hard to say that, though.
It took a while to get there.
It took a while. It took them 4 or 5 seasons.
It took a while. Yeah.
How many episodes in each season?
But I think Andre mentioned it. He hit it where I believe the strength of the DC shows is that they don't have to be fully intertwined. Like Black Lightning wasn't in the DCU. It was based in Atlanta, Georgia, and they didn't really interact with anyone else. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was stuck where it was on ABC, and it's like, we're going to tie this to the MCU. Well, actually not. We're not going to tie it to the MCU. So like we had these expectations brought up where they're like, oh, there's Samuel Jackson, there's Lady Sif, there's all these things, and they're connected. Everything's connected. And then they later decide, never mind, we're going to pull this away from you.
Yeah.
So
they got screwed.
It got jobbed hard. So it was on a network TV show, so the expectations are different and money's different, and our bar for Marvel was always higher than anything DC did. So I think we're never diminishing the Herculean task that Greg Berlanti had to do to get this Arrowverse together, because again, he wrote that terrible Green Lantern movie, and he was still able to resurrect himself like a phoenix from the flame.
Yeah, man, he's a mad producer now, though. He's got all the coinage.
He wrote some bad stuff that if Andre went back and it's like, oh no, but he was able to. Clearly, his strength is not maybe writing now; it's about overseeing and like And now he has every show, like anything that
Yeah.
Greg Berlanti touches now, it's like, oh, it gets a couple episodes, couple seasons. So whether it's You, which is a completely different thing, and now all the Arrowverse stuff and Kung Fu, like he's executive producer on that one.
Walker Texas Ranger? Is he on
No,
Walker
Texas Ranger.
Okay.
No, but he's an outside. Listen, he's a creative guy that he says, I have an idea. I think this is how we do it.
Yeah.
Maybe he recognizes his strength as a writer is not great, but he surrounds himself with great people who can execute and pull. Like Mark Guggenheim is just as important to the Arrowverse as what Greg Berlanti was. So.
Yeah. Riverdale, like all that Riverdale stuff was
Riverdale. I do enjoy some Riverdale.
Like,
he's a super producer, man.
Yeah,
Riverdale universe.
He's up there with the Shonda Rhimes and everything else in terms of production and producing and making the content.
He's just like Johnny Favs, where he just gets the good people to do it, and he's just kind of there to oversee some of the operations. And clearly, we've seen with J.J. Abrams is that you need a plan, and if you don't have a plan, this is what happens. So at least.
No plan.
No plan.
That's not on J.J. Abrams. Give me a break.
Yeah, well, anyways, nonetheless. Okay, so now we're going to jump to our next thing. Needless to say, no one wants to kill the Arrowverse. Everyone's fine with it. Carry on. Let people do their own thing.
But quick mentions, dude. Remember Smallville? And remember during the Smallville era, they did that Aquaman pilot?
They did.
Called Mercy Reef or something?
Yeah.
And how bad did you want that show to happen at that time? And you would have been like, we would have had Superman and we would have had Aquaman and stuff like that. And
they were going to,
I don't know if that's available to watch now. I don't know if it holds up, but I remember really liking it. But it never happened. So
for those who don't know,
having this many shows is crazy.
I think the trailer of it exists somewhere. There's Justin Hartley who ended up playing.
I think it was on iTunes. I think they put it
Arrow.
on something you could actually watch it.
And then now he's on This Is Us, of course, as Kevin Pearson. But and then it was Vin Rhames, right? It was Vin Rhames.
Vin Rhames. Yeah. But they recast that Aquaman to Alan.
Because they used him for Green Arrow.
Yeah.
Anyways, he's the guy in Hawk and Dove.
Who's Jack Reacher? He's Jack Reacher.
He's Jack Reacher. Yeah.
Oh, he's Jack Reacher now.
Yeah. Jack Reacher.
Good. Yeah, he's tall. Good. Give it to him. Anyways, but yeah, John, you're right. When that came out, we were like, oh my god, I want to see that. Right?
You're like, please happen.
Yeah, I want to see Mercy Reef.
And now we've got like a whole hand plus worth of superhero shows. So we've come a long way.
And we've got so many shows that we don't even have to watch them.
Yeah. You can choose.
We went from chomping at the bit for something to now we literally have a table full and we're like, no, I don't want 8. I was good with the seconds, but I can't eat any
Anders,
more.
I will not have the Jupiter's Legacy course.
Oh boy. Yeah, that was
I
rough.
finished at the buffet and I felt really full afterwards.
That was a lot of empty calories. That was a lot of pasta. Unnecessary bread is what anyway.
It was pasta with no sauce.
Yeah.
Can I get a little rosé with that? No, all right. No cream sauce.
No salt. It was just brutal. Alan Richardson is the actor, and he was in a lot of stuff. But okay, so we're jumping over to, and again, as you talk randomly about casting, something I hold near and dear to my heart is, of course, the Sandman. But again, I recommend, if you haven't listened to the audio of it, and you can bring your comic book and open it as it's like one of those old like read and listens. It's a wonderful opportunity. So if you get your book of Sandman and you play that audio book, you can flip through the comics and listen to because pretty much everything is pretty much the same except for James McAvoy's playing Sandman, and it's freaking James McAvoy. So Netflix is doing their interpretation of it, and the interesting casting, though, a lot of it was fine, like interesting people to cast, but I think the one that really shook, I guess, the internet a little bit more was a little more interesting in terms of Doctor Who's Jenna Coleman, which of course is fantastic, will play Joanna Constantine. So yes, that John Constantine is now being gender switched, and who of course is an exorcist, an occultist, a really basically Sting. But now they're going to switch it over to be Jenna Coleman as, as John Constantine. So we know that Sandman spun off a lot of things, whether it was Constantine and that abomination, which is Lucifer, the TV show on, it used to be on Fox, but now is on that finally finished on Netflix. But I want to get your thoughts on this Constantine stuff. Like, what are your thoughts, John?
Not really my thing. I didn't read a lot of Constantine stuff, Hellblazer, other than if you're gonna start talking that Keanu Reeves movie, then maybe I'll chime in. But other than that, it wasn't really my thing, so I can't really speak too much on it.
But do you, what do you think? Like, at least switching to another, like switching it to a whole different profile, at least, because
Sure, go for it.
Okay.
I don't have any attachment to the character, so yeah, switch it around,
Do whatever you want.
It didn't catch my attention originally. Like
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of love for Constantine, that character, and when the book comes out, people always check it out and stuff like that. But I have no
TV
attachment.
show, and now on Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah, I haven't seen the TV show either, or whatever. So
Oh, the TV show is good. Anyways, all right, Andre, what are your thoughts?
I think it's pretty interesting because I did read up a little bit on it, and is this character? I thought they were saying it was a ancestor of Constantine and not. So I'm okay with that. I guess we need more context to see where this character is fitting in. I think if it's just a gender swap for John Constantine, I don't know if that's something necessary to do, especially in the Sandman universe, because it has got so many great characters of different backgrounds, different cultures, different pantheons of religion and stuff like that.
Yep.
It's such already a diverse and great story. I did not see it as being I don't know if this is the correct term, but I don't think it was a gender biased show. I don't or book. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I will say this. I think Neil Gaiman is very smart in how he, I don't want to use the word controls his properties, but when his properties get put into something else, I think he still is very much involved. So I can't see this as just something it was a decision that didn't either involve him or he didn't have a say in it and is kind of behind. Now, again, I haven't read that anywhere or whatever, but I just believe, like, look at, even the first seasons of American Gods, like how good that was. And the audio
Sandman,
book, so good. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't think, like, he's a guy that is so well respected in many worlds, like the literary world, the comic world, and, now movies and, television. Like, people respect Gaiman. This guy, the guy's like a Renaissance man. So I can't see this being just let's just do this for the shock and awe value. Like, this isn't Marvel saying, oh, hey, we're gonna make, Thor, Jane Foster, Jennifer Walters, She-Hulk, and X-23 Wolverine all in the same, comic year to get shock value and to drive headlines. So I think this is I want to believe it's getting done for a good creative purpose that is going to drive the story. So
okay, no, it's good. And I haven't read that either. It's kind of up in the air. To your point, Andre, if it's, I think Marvel, to your point, does a job of pivoting in terms of the character is still available. It's just now the title's being passed to someone else, as opposed to some other comics where they're like, Wally West, and love, he's now just being completely swapped out with someone else. So it is a different strategy, because in terms of, in terms of switching characters, other places seem to just basically swap them out completely. So it is, and then now they brought back, and now there's two Wally Wests, and it's a weird thing. So
multiverse, man.
Yeah. Rob.
Okay, so a couple of things. I think there's a dual conversation that this is about. One, when it comes to Sandman properties, I'm aware of them, but I never really read them when I was younger. But I do actually respect a lot of what Neil Gaiman has written. I read a couple of his books way back in the day. He's written some of the best Doctor Who episodes in the recent years. And so, and I did see American God season 1. I thought I had maybe done a bunch of shrooms. I was very concerned as what was happening, but I was sober and it was just a show. So I'm cool with it. I think when it comes to this Joanna Constantine, as Andre said, she is the great great grandmother, sorry, of John Constantine. So that obviously takes place, I think it's like 1901, and so there'll be some flipping of modern day back to the past. I think that when it comes to this outrage, this whole gender bending or gender swapping, that's a whole different topic, and one that we can go on for days and days and days. I don't know what drives it. I don't know if it's because people are so connected to these characters. I mean, people love Matt Ryan's portrayal as John Constantine, which was kind of on the outside of the periphery of the Arrowverse, and although he's been kind of shoehorned into Legends of Tomorrow, but I digress. But you saw it when last year when when James Bond, the 25th movie, was going to be released, and it was like, well, he's no longer, there was a rumors that it's a female Bond.
Yeah.
And people got really angry and got really upset, and you realize it's just the moniker of 007 that was passed. So I think it's a much bigger conversation than what we could probably try to hammer out. I just think that for whatever reason, fandom feels that they have complete ownership over every character, and if how dare you make changes to my beloved character, and they get themselves angry. And I think that people who don't really give two shits about stuff like this, like us, aren't vocal about it online. We don't spend the time debating with the trolls about it. So that's why I think you get this an echo chamber of anger derived from these people, because they're the ones that are taking the time in their computer hammering out their soliloquies of why they hate.
Yeah, to your point, Rob, it's fans are fanatics. That's pretty much the short form of it. But again, it's no different than my love for Star Trek and how angry I was after that first movie with JJ. I'm like, wait a second, all the currency I have is useless. It's kind of like the Star Wars legacy stuff too. It's like, you just, like, wait a second, all the books I read are not canonical. Like, it's a lot. So people invest a lot of time and effort into a property, and when you basically say that's, it's not valued anymore, people get like, wait a second, how's that even possible? So it is, to your point, it's a bigger question and a bigger thing. I think.
Well, Neil Gaiman has come out, and so I mean, listen, I'm dropping an F-bomb on this one, but he tweeted out, because somebody's like, "Why are you selling out? Just stand by your work." And he said, "I give all the fucks about the work. I spent 30 years successfully battling bad movies of Sandman. I give zero fucks about people who don't understand or haven't read Sandman, whining about a non-binary desire or that death isn't white enough. Watch the show, make up your minds." And there you go. Like that, this is somebody who obviously, right there, you have a creator who has complete ownership and is very careful about how his properties are interpreted.
Yeah.
And yet he is very open to adjustments and changing and this and that. So we've all said it before. We said it again. And Andre says it all the time. If you like it, watch it. If you don't, then don't. It's up to you. We have so much that we can watch, and that we don't watch a lot of it because there's just so much selection. So
I think we just have to remember. Sorry, Andre, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Rob said it. I think people make it their crusade. Like, oh my God, you changed this. Like, do you guys remember when they changed Superman and he went from Superman Red and Blue?
Yeah.
And this was after the death, and there were so many people yelling and screaming about Superman. And I remember I was working at a store at a time, and I was going to conventions. Like, I was went to Chicago Comic Con. I was going all over for these cons. I was talking to people, and I'm like, "What's the last Superman comic you ever read?" "Oh, I don't read Superman comics." I'm like, and I'm like, then shut the hell up. If there's a change and the change has merit, and this person telling the story at that time is using it as a mechanism to drive the story, and it ends up being good, great, go for it. I think a lot of people don't realize, especially in the comic book realm, is that you can't have things at the status quo forever, because readership drops off. People grow up and do grow out of these heroes and these characters. But when something is changed and the concept is changed, it brings people back. And it's just a matter of, does that change become permanent? And I've been in comics a long time. I'll tell you, most characters that have changed, it always comes right back around to the original, because somebody else now can tell a new story in a different way. Like, look at Frank Miller in the 80s when the Dark Knight came out. Dark Knight Returns.
Yep.
That changed how Batman was done, and forevermore. Like
Right.
going forward, you can now tell the Batman stories that we're getting. But I'm sure at the time people are like, "Oh my God, what have you done to Batman?" And stuff. So I think people need to at least research or look at, read what's going on, maybe consume the first episode and then make that thing. But again, people are on a crusade. Rob's talking about it. They want to
Yeah,
just yell and
yeah.
scream on the internet without having a conversation in front of somebody, so somebody could say, "Hey, hold on a second, why is X-23 Wolverine?" Well, Wolverine happens to be encased in adamantium, and this person has taken up the mantle, and guess what, he will come back. You know what I mean? People don't think past that.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between that and changing, right? Because again, to your point, Andre, he's still there. It's not like you're getting rid of the name. I think from this aspect of changing Death is a very particular looking character, and people cosplay her a lot. And there's a look and feel to her, so it's understandable why people are very upset, because she is this character that people have gotten used to through decades of work, and this is what they know, and this is what they want to continue on. They want that interpretation from book, like they want the look to be from the book into live action.
But
And I
this
don't
is a
blame them.
problem.
And
Yeah, but this is a problem though, Stu,
Yeah.
because people take characters, literary characters or characters in movies and television, and they feel like they have this complete ownership. And yet, and I don't know, I bet you some of these people, same people, will watch soap operas or watch Melrose Place or any of these CW drama shows and be okay with the crazy storylines of who's sleeping, like, and all these changes and things like for that, the absurdity of a lot of these soap opera stories.
Yeah, but that's not the absurd. That's the different point,
Okay,
Rob.
well,
It's
Not. But what I'm
off-
saying is they accept
no, but
because
it's
they don't
based
have a
off-
tie to those characters. That's why.
That's true. That's the point. Yes,
Right.
But when you have a book and you've read all the issues of Sandman and you saw that, and then you watch the animated short that they did, and you watch all this stuff before, and and you see descriptions of that character, and you know that as canonical. Then it's like this TV show now is completely different than that. You're like, okay, well, what does that mean for my knowledge? Does that devalue it? Does it change it? What does that mean?
This is a great topic, and I think you hit it on. And I'm going to speak as person who's on both sides of this. So you did mention like the people who love these characters enough to cosplay and stuff, but it doesn't change the fact that Death and these characters for X number of years still exist in the original format, and you can still enjoy that format. Look at me with Star Wars. How many Star Wars books have I read, and all of this stuff, and beloved, and all of a sudden, they go in this direction that I didn't enjoy or whatever, and I didn't consume those new prequel movies. But guess what? It's slowly coming back around. So maybe what the nice thing is that those people, maybe this particular version of Sandman isn't going to be for them, but maybe 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, somebody else says, "Hey, I want to do a what do you call it when it's as close as possible?" Say, "Hey, I want to do just a transfer from the original source to the silver screen or to the television or to the animated scene." You may get that. We fight this all the time. In comics, Superman's costume changed. Oh my God, he doesn't have blue underwear over his tights, and people get their panties in a bunch, as the saying goes, right? But again, as long as it is a respectful change, and you can still look at that character and say, "I recognize that character." Yes, Superman may not have the yellow S on the back of his red cape, but he still has the red cape, still has the blue costume, and he still stands for truth and justice. Cool. I'm going to consume it, or I'm not going to consume it.
I think yes, the costume change is one thing, but it's people are very up against the wall when you make massive changes to the character. Like, I know when I think Wally West is one of my favorite DC characters, and when they made the change, I understood why they made the change, but I can understand why people are like, "You're getting rid of a character completely. All the information I know about them is gone, and now it's like, here's a new Wally West." And that's something difficult. Like, it's one thing where it's a costume, but the costume doesn't matter to like the grand scheme of things in a panel. You barely see anything. But when you change a character completely, and then it's like, here, it's like, you know, like here's Luke Skywalker. Now we're gonna change everything about them. He's gonna be an Asian guy now. People would be like, "What is happening? What does that mean? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean Luke Skywalker's an old Japanese guy, samurai? Like that theoretically from Kurosawa, it was probably makes more sense than anything else, because he's this monk and all these. But people would be up in arms and be like, "Why are you changing it? Why are you doing this?"
100%. But
So
again, it doesn't change what
Mm.
they loved about the original, and that took a long time for
Yeah.
me, even me to challenge to recognize, because you guys know me, I'm original, and I want to see that respected and stuff like that. But you either consume it or you don't, and if you choose not to consume it, then great, let other people like enjoy it, and then hope that somebody in the future continues what you've enjoyed. And if they don't, a la Star Wars for me, I can reread all my Legends
Yeah.
novels.
Mm.
And in my mind's eye, Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia, their kids still exist for me. And I would argue that I'm greater, and my love for Star Wars is not diminished by the new stuff. I actually feel bad for people who haven't read that. And John knows at the store, I'm like, hey guys, if you read Heir to the Empire, read this trilogy. Read, and I'm always trying, like, I think I bought John those books. I'm like, John, here, take the audiobook. See why I love it. They still exist. This feels better to me. But at the same time, I recognize that that's also me. If somebody says, no, I really love Ray, then I'm not going to say poo-poo to that. I'm just going to be like, okay, I just didn't get it.
Yeah, but,
you know what
that's
I mean?
the
So
thing. But I think that's the other thing
that's
too,
it.
Andre, is that that's no longer canon, and anyone who watches the new stuff, that's the trump card. So it's kind of like Shaq when he's on TV all the time. He's like, goes to Barkley, he'd be like, Andre, well, you got no rings. How many championships you got? And that is what I think a lot of people are more upset about, is that when the new canon comes in, and that's part of it. It's like, well, I know I'm right, you're wrong, because all the stuff you know doesn't make sense. I think that's what a lot of people are upset about too. It's like, wait,
For sure.
it's like,
And I
oh
get
wait,
it.
all the stuff I know is, yes, to your point, you can always relive it. But when someone tells you that's wrong, that's when you get up against the wall going,
I don't see.
you know?
It's funny
So
because I think there'd be very few people who would say you're wrong for liking the original, because they might not know what the original is.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, I think sometimes what I like, and I think what some people like about being into comics and sci-fi and all this stuff, is that we can always say, yeah, we were there at the beginning.
Yeah.
Or we liked Marvel comics is comics. You may know the Avengers and the Infinity Game, or what, not Infinity, what's it called?
Infinity War.
But I know the
Game.
And
Infinity
Endgame,
Gauntlet,
you
the
combine them
Infinity
together,
War,
yes.
the Infinity Crusade.
Yeah.
I know where it started from. And there is something special about that. Again, we don't want to gatekeep, and we don't want to say, oh, I'm a bigger fan than you, or a better fan. I just always say, I might just have more knowledge, and my well is deeper than yours. So, we can talk about it, but let's not, fight about it, or whatever. Which, again, sometimes there's very heated conversations and they can be fun, but I would never get to the point where I hopefully don't say to somebody, oh, you're an idiot or you're stupid because you like this. I just have to excuse myself and be like, I didn't like it, or I didn't watch it, so I'm stepping away. This is how I feel, but I'm stepping away. So
no, it's people are always trying to prove they're right, and this is people will use that as this is canonical because it's on media, and this is when I'm going to put my stake on. So I'm sure we'll go back to it as we know more information, but let's jump on to the next thing, which is James Bond. We have two Bond head here, which is the next spin-off podcast, Bond Heads, with Andre and Rob. And John knows cars from Bond. So if there's a subsect, John's already fully disclosed. He's like, I don't know Bond, but I know each car in the Bond movie. I'm like, that's useless
I remember those. I don't remember what happened in either any of the movies.
So as people know already, Amazon is going to buy MGM and their studio for $8.5, we'll round up, $billion, giving access to the James Bond franchise. Lots of rumors them talking about building a James Bond universe, of course, because the shared universe is important, whether it's MI6, TV series or straight out a Bond, a young Bond show, James Bond Jr., as you would say back in the day, as the cartoon show would say. Um, I have the two Bond guys here, but I'll ask John first because always John. Do you think this would devalue the Bond brand? A lot of Bond is based on prestige. Now they've kind of pivoted to like the last few years of like the best Omega watches, Heineken. Like it's a luxury brand movie where they get all their, clearly a lot of their advertising and a lot of their budget is subsidized by very expensive things. Bond always wearing tuxedos and whatnot. Do you think this would devalue it if they made a Amazon TV show with starring 006 Sean Bean back from the grave? Like, is this gonna be a problem?
I don't know. It's hard for me to say because I'm not following. I'm not as invested as you guys because I was taking a look at the box offices and the Bonds still smash. They still crush it.
Now they do, yeah.
And I thought maybe Mission Impossible had kind of like overtaken it, but no, Bond still is kind of winning that race. So I don't know if they really need to do anything. I would be interested in watching a show though. Like a lot of the shows of that style seem to be doing very well. And if they keep the kind of prestige and it's a higher end show, like more serious, and like I don't know if you would what would be the closest comparison, the Jack Ryan series or something.
They did Treadstone, which was not great.
Oh, Treadstone was not good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, Treadstone is Mission Impossible, right?
No, the Jason Bourne.
Bourne.
Oh,
Jason Bourne franchise.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was spun off the Jeremy Renner.
Yeah, and then
Bond,
Jack
right?
Ryan is Jack Ryan is basically the Tom Clancy universe.
Yeah, so Jack Ryan would probably be the closest comparison. Maybe even that new Michael B. Jordan movie. I don't know if that's an Amazon production or whatever. Yeah, without remorse. Yeah, along those lines, like the quality of those shows is really good. So if you can pull that off, but like I said, I'm not as invested in the James Bond franchise. So
if they
maybe a TV show.
But if he starts wearing an Apple Watch, will you care? It's like, oh, James Bond Apple Watch.
Okay, yeah. So I think that would make a difference. That's a good point. If he's not wearing like the high-end Omega or whatever watch, then yeah, I might be like, if it's like the MacGyver show but with James Bond, then maybe not so hot. So they'd really have to be careful with it. Yeah.
Andre?
Well, I was thinking maybe you should go to Rob first for
No.
his. Okay, so a couple of things. I'm going to ask a question because I did hear this, but is this a finalized deal? Like, has this gone through?
It has to go through regulatory approval.
But
so
it's agreed on principle, yeah.
Yeah.
It's going
to shareholders have agreed.
So more than likely it's going to happen.
99% yes.
Okay, wow. So this is a huge deal. I got a couple of thoughts on this. For Bond, I'm a big fan of Bond because I grew up on it, but I like a specific set of Bond.
Yes, you do.
And I think that the new Bond stuff took away from Bond after the success of the Jason Bourne movies.
Mm-hmm.
You instantly had a character who may be closer to the novels. I haven't read any of the Bond novels, so maybe what's his name?
Ian Fleming?
Clive Owen.
No, Daniel Craig.
Oh, Daniel Craig.
Maybe Daniel Craig plays closer to the movie character. Maybe he plays closer to Ian Fleming's novelizations. But the Bond I like is that slick, like you said, tuxedo. He's gonna con you before he needs to kill you. You know what I mean? And I like the ridiculous gadgets. I liked all that stuff. So I do think that Bond is super popular. I think that name alone, I think it's the second most known person in the world is James Bond. I think it goes Jesus and then James Bond are the two biggest names. You can say those anywhere in the world and people will know who
I'm behind Harry Potter now. I got Harry, I'm after you next.
So I think this is very interesting because I think they have a potential to cater to all of their fan base if they do it right. The movies continue to be the blockbusters, and you do what you said, Stu. It's the high end. It's everything we've come to know and love. But MI6 is huge. You could have an MI6 show showcasing other agents that aren't like Bond. Or you can then say, yeah, we can do a 10 episode big budget Bond show that then allows you to tell these stories tighter than the movies can. Because I think my big problem with the new movies is they all tried to be connected, but I'm like, it's not working for me. I know a lot of people love them, but it just didn't work. Like, and they kept dropping new information about this character that was contradictory to the other stuff and whatever. So I think you could be like, hey, we have 10 hours. We're going to do 10 1-hour episodes so we can build this character. We can do the birth of Bond and get to where he's at. So we go, oh, now we know what his origin is completely. Oh, he was an orphan. No, this is how he became an orphan or whatever. Not, oh, he's an orphan raised by the state, but he's got this mansion and a butler. Where'd that come from? You know, I think they can really get to do some great stuff if it's done right. But Amazon, man, I don't know if I want them to have that license, but they can do it. They got Lord of the Rings now, Bond. Wow.
Andre, I just can't wait for the workplace comedy like The Office of MI6, where Rob and me can talk about the analysts
Dude,
talking
a
and,
Money
like,
Penny
making
show.
jokes, a comedy show based on The Office of like 006 is just running around doing wacky stuff. 007 walks, he's like, "Hey-o," and then this is like stuff happening. So
How about a
be
Shark Tank
careful.
show with Q?
Yeah, be
Yeah.
careful
Like pitching
what you
all his
wish for, Andre,
inventions.
because it's gonna be a weird, wacky show in the background where
But they
these
could-
guys are
you know what,
analysts, and
they
then they're
could
like
do it.
007 just wrecks everything. So
They could do it. Honestly, there's lots of potential there, as long as they don't like oversaturate it. And maybe, like I said, if they said, okay, every 3 years we're still gonna get a big blockbuster Bond movie where it's gonna, give us all of what we're looking for, but you can then do these other things.
Yeah.
You guys mentioned shows, and I know it's not super great, but do you remember there was a Transporter TV show?
yes.
Yeah.
That show, like, I remember for what it was, I'm like, yo, they got fast cars. The guy would have put on the suit. He did some fighting. It was set in Europe, so it had a little bit of that feel.
All right.
And that show probably had no budget. So could you imagine what they could do if they had a little bit of a budget?
What's
I
a
don't know.
high end spy show? The Americans? Would that be considered a?
That was FX, not even high end.
Yeah, that's not high end at all. There was no, yeah.
It was from the 80s. So, I
You'd probably say the high. I would say probably the most recent would be the Jack Ryan stuff.
Yep.
I think the Jack Reacher. I don't even think that would be. It could, because it's just a different. I'm a huge Jack Reacher fan, but they won't be like a spy like that.
even
so.
the Marvel stuff, each season's like 200 million. Like they would have to spend that type of money to like,
Yeah,
get it to
Falcon
the
and
level of
Falcon and Winter Soldier quality. Then I guess.
200, 250 for that. But Rob, give us your thoughts on.
So I'm coming in to put everybody at ease. There's
Rob's
not
got
going to
all the
be.
answers.
There's not going to be any James Bond show. So Amazon buying MGM for $8.45 billion. You have to understand, and this is going to get a little bit inside baseball, but you have to understand that the rights of the James Bond franchise, as it pertains to the cinematic or television rights or whatever, is held by Eon Productions, which is a derivative of the company that Albert Broccoli, who originally signed and got the rights for James Bond from Ian Fleming way back in the day. So it's held by his daughter and stepson. So Eon Productions have a controlling interest in James Bond. So now MGM does have a portion of, I don't want to use the term rights, but that's kind of what it is, to James Bond. But in so much as that they are the producers, or they're the bit of the money aspect. They gain more at in the box office than anything else. The Eon Productions, Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson, actually have complete control of every aspect of James Bond in terms of casting, script, directors, product placement, and everything else. This is very different than what you see with, like, say, Sony having the rights to the Spider-Man universe. This is completely different. This is a very unique, and it's probably the only situation where this other company share some of the rights with MGM, but MGM has no ability to be able to make any properties involving James Bond. They have no ability to dictate the terms of when movies come out or anything else. So Amazon purchasing MGM, they will then inherit that portion of quote unquote rights to James Bond, but they will have, Jeff Bezos will not be able to dictate we're putting on a Bond television series on Amazon Prime, because Eon Productions will say, no, you're not. There is no way out of the very tight legal control that Eon Productions have of Bond. So there won't be, this is not, we don't have to worry about, this new Bond movie coming out.
Would you want one?
No, I wouldn't want one. Not at all. I think that the Bond movies are one of the few. Listen, it's been 53 years. They're coming up to 25, or maybe it's 55 years, and it's only the 25th movie will be out sometime this fall. So, there's a lot of interpretations.
Charlie Brown, Rob, you got to be who knows when it's going to come out.
There's a lot of interpretations. There are books that are written. The people who own the book rights are vastly different. So there's still comics. I mean, Warren Ellis did an amazing James Bond run for Dynamite, and so did Benjamin Percy. He did a 6 issues for Dynamite as well back in just a few years ago. So there are other aspects. If you want to get more James Bond stuff, you can get it from there. But I don't want a TV show, a Bond universe. I don't want an MI6 TV show. We already got that. The BBC already did a good show, MI6. They've done a few of these spy things within MI6. So I'm not concerned. I'm not worried. Unless Jeff Bezos decides to, back up a Brinks truck and dump like trillions of dollars for the Bond ownership, that's never going to happen. It's too high of a value of a property. So I don't want a TV show, and we're not going to get one.
Why would you not want a TV show?
I think that I don't see how it expands on the character of what we have. I don't see how it helps. I don't see how it fills in gaps that I don't really care to see. I don't really care to see the other 00 agents fight. I don't think it does anything. Like it doesn't elevate.
Okay. So because we're the two Bond heads. Okay, so let's say instead of Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, right? Spectre, right? Instead of those 4 movies that we got that were how many years apart? And
2006, 2008, 2012, 2015, and 2021.
Right. And so you're telling me that you wouldn't rather have I'm just putting it out there, a Game of Thrones budget that tells that story cohesively and
longer form of storytelling.
Longer form of story, but it still encompasses all of those elements that you like about. Like what I'm saying is, take all my gripes about that portrayal of Bond, and you can be like, hey, now we have time to put it in. Like I don't see how, if done right, it's not a potential thing.
No, see, for me, very few properties are done right enough to appease. I mean, as much as we enjoyed Falcon and the Winter Soldier, there's still some of the aspects of it. You're like, okay, like it's never going to be 100%. I get it. I know that you're not a fan of these more recent movies, and I completely understand. I see where the faults are. I just prefer my Bond in 2 to 2.5 hour chunks. I don't need to see a TV show with him. What about
the books? The books, do you consider better than the movie that spins out of them? Like, do you read the books, Rob? Or
yeah, I've read the books, but I haven't read the more newer, because there's like these newer interpretations.
But for example, Casino Royale.
So it's the same though. If you look at the Jason Bourne, the first Bourne, the Bourne Identity. Like that's, I mean, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, I think, and the book is really good. I enjoy the movie, but it's obviously, you're not going to have a movie made in 2008 where you have microfiche in the guy's leg, right? It's going to be
I just mean like the longer story, the more time you have to tell the story. Like I'll say Jack Reacher, because that's the only thing I've read the book.
Yeah.
Watch the movie and I'm going to consume the show. So much more happens in the book than versus the movie.
Yeah, but
if they have a TV show, they can definitely stretch out all the stuff that he accomplishes within a book, right?
I think that the pacing. I just think that the pacing of the movies, it lends, like, if you're doing an interpretation, it lends better to a movie than it does to a 10-episode series or even a 6-episode series. Like, I just don't think, you're breaking into a Russian facility. Do I need an entire episode of him trying to break into that facility? No, yes. I don't.
How does he get in?
through the bathroom stall upside down and shoots a guy while he's taking a dump. Like that's
but Rob, that's not kind of what I'm talking about. But I can see your point. I'm not trying to take away from. I guess it's just I look at it and I think of when you're talking and you say, oh yeah, I'm really liking, you know, the Superman and Lois show or whatever, and that's a long form thing and stuff like that. So I don't know. I don't see.
I know, I get it. It's a dichotomy. You're right. I'm not being consistent with but I look at the James Bond franchise. Maybe
as
it's just
movie only.
Yeah, I just look at it as being a movie only. I watched that 1992 cartoon, James Bond Jr. It never made any sense to me because James Bond was an orphan. He has no siblings, but yet this kid's his nephew. I don't understand how that worked. But okay. But it's always been a movie. It's always been something special. It's like when a James Bond movie came out, it was a spectacle. It was something. I worked at a video store, you know, VHS days, you know, people would grab the, you know, 3 movies at a time and would just sit and watch a James Bond movie because it was something.
Okay,
that
so you have a nostalgia feel.
Yeah, but it wasn't something that was diluted by other properties.
However, based on box office performance, the new Bond movies surpass in their profits more than any other Bond movie. Because if you look at Bond Casino Royale, it made an obscene amount of money, $606 million at the time, which was one of the highest Bond movies. Quantum of Solace made $580 million. Skyfall made over $1 billion. Spectre made $800 million. And like that's head and tails higher than any of the Pierce Brosnan movies. Pierce Brosnan was like 350. Like it is now doubling that. So people clearly want this style because it makes more money. I think the other movies have its place and people enjoy them on a rewatch, or maybe they don't want to pay to watch them. But clearly there's a trend in the last few movies where what is working is this style because they want it to be this high-end property for Bond because everything looks fancy, expensive, brand new. Like you're living that super spy, high-level luxury lifestyle, and that's what Bond is doing right now, and all its stuff. But
it's palatable and consumable in a sitting. Yeah. And that's what I think. There's a lot of people who will say, "Oh, it's a rainy Sunday. I'm just gonna throw on a James Bond." You can throw on one of the 24 movies; it doesn't make a difference, and you're gonna watch it for 2.5 hours.
I'm not gonna tank a whole season.
People aren't gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna sit down and watch 6 hours of Bond of these movies." Right? So I just think, for me, I like I can consume it. I like the lore behind it. Maybe that's also the whole idea is it's so long. It's the same reason why I prefer Doctor Who in television episodes. I wouldn't want a movie version of it. I think that then that would dilute the whole process and the whole story of that as well. So that's just me. I do think that we won't be getting an Amazon TV series on.
Well, it's also the debate between the Star Trek movies and the Star Trek TV show. Like they're drastically different than movies a lot of the times. Although the new ones, like, I would rather have the TV show rather than the movies. I don't need the movies. Although First Contact is dope. It's the only one that I would say it's worth its own movie because it was made in an action-y style. But all the other ones, like Insurrection and all.
But for me, though, I enjoy Star Trek stuff, and I've watched every season, and I've watched all that. But I'm more inclined to throw on a movie, regardless if it's the JJ movie or even the original Shatner movies, like the first 8. Like I would throw on like Undiscovered Country or whatever. Like I would put those on if I have a couple hours to burn. I wouldn't start up a whole season of a series. That's just me, though.
Okay, so let me ask you guys this. So if Amazon buys this for $8.5 billion, right?
They are buying it, but yes.
Okay, so
it's again it's unlikely that they don't get it, but yes.
How many movies do they then have to produce to make that money back if they are not able?
Well, it doesn't matter about the movies. It's the content because it's Amazon. What they're looking at, Andre, is that they're adding all those movies, the MGM, into Amazon Video Prime, right? So now what they're trying to do is like, you know what, Andre, why don't you pay for Prime and you get access to all these movies? And then now that you have Prime, you're like, oh, by the way, do you know you get free shipping for Amazon Prime? And you're like, oh, yeah, I guess I'll buy some stuff. They don't care about the movies. They just want you on the platform to be like, to buy stuff because that's what's going to make money because you have access to free shipping.
But do you think they're like, I'm just trying to think of, I do get that. And I think they're definitely going for the appeal. But couldn't there have been something else that they didn't need to spend $8.5 billion on?
No, because at the end of
hold on, if they don't have the potential to create something down the road.
The thing is, if you can see right now, when we didn't talk about before, what you can see why Warner Brothers is being sold off is that you have, just like back in the day with 3 giant networks, Andre, NBC, ABC, and like CBS. We're going back to that where there's 3 major streaming services owned by 3 people, because that's where all the content is. You want to pay for 7 streaming sites. You want to pay for the big 3, whether it's Fox and all the portfolio and Disney. You want to pay all the stuff for Warner Brothers. Like, so they're moving more back to these 3 giant property houses, so that you get the most value for it. And if Amazon has to jump in the game and buy all that, it's like same thing with video games. Look at the studios now. What did Sony do? Bought all of these gaming studios to put it under to build content, so you buy a PlayStation.
But
like,
to answer on
like, so it's like, yes. So to your point, sorry, Rob, let me finish it. They, from cost wise, who knows when they'll make it back, but really it's bigger things right now, because if you're a small streaming service, there's no point of operating. It just costs too much to be in the game, to basically produce content now, and people are not going to watch it. So you're losing more money. Like, look at Netflix. It's got that lead, but now it's kind of, is it going to sustain itself if it doesn't continue to create its own content? So Amazon is looking to be in that space, because at the end of the day, it could be them, it could be Disney, it could be Netflix, and then, there's Paramount Plus. There's all these, things right now, and you can't get lost because there's no value added proposition to it.
But we talk about, like, on, John and I, we talked about this on the What I Miss podcast we did with his brother Chris and Pat. It's a matter of ownership. It's a matter of content ownership now, right? That's how, it's not a matter of streaming wars. It's a matter of content ownership. And so we look at the MGM thing and say, oh, well, it's all Bond, but it's not. It's hundreds of thousands of hours of other content that they own, and television shows like Survivor, The Handmaid's Tale, for more recent television shows, and all these older movies, the RoboCop series, this and that. So you now have ownership of that content. Yeah, you have ownership of that content and characters, and now you can do reboots of those franchises. You can make a Stargate franchise again. You can do. So
it's not just Bond.
It's not just Bond. It's tons and tons. Rocky Universe, like, they have now ownership of the Creed stuff. So this Creed 3 that's going to be coming out, and then you have to think of all the streaming services that have licensed it out. So Netflix has got licensing deals for, say, Creed over the next 10 years. It's going to come in, it's going to go out, it's going to come back in. All that money then gets sent back and funneled back to,
that makes sense. To
Amazon.
So, let's talk about Andre, G.I. Joe, The Hobbit, Hot Tub Time Machine, the Barbershop series, Tomb Raider, Creed. All that stuff now belongs to them in terms of
Starship Troopers,
like Pink Panther. Like, there's tons of stuff where they're rebooting, and you can just, all the Hannibal stuff. So, Hannibal Rising and Silence of the Lambs, Rocky Balboa.
Rising.
They own Basic Instinct. They basically will have all this stuff that that belongs.
And those are constantly revenue generating, even though they're older properties and movies. There are still television stations that license it out to say, hey, we would like to have we want to broadcast this on a Saturday afternoon movie or whatever, right? Yeah. Like, so it's constantly generating revenue. It just way behind the scenes is something that we don't think about. We think about new. We don't think about how much it's still bringing in.
Like, they own Kingpin, like that old, like all some of the Farley brothers, like all this stuff. They have a lot of content from, because they own 7 or 8 different production companies, just like how Disney had Touchstone and all these the smaller houses. Right. So they just have access to huge amount of content, including one of our favorite movies, Hackers. So there they go. They got that, including all the old black and white stuff. So I think it'll be interesting once we go through that list later on about how much stuff there is, Andre. And if you start going through the list like I'm going through, you're like, wow, they own so much stuff now, in terms of even they own Moonstruck, one of the movies we talked about on the Sidekicks podcast. So there's going to be a lot of things where including they also own the I guess the secret terrible but good movie Solar Babies. So they can reboot that bad boy with Jamie Gertz. So there we go. This is a big thing. All right, we'll talk about that other day, because Yeah, not only Bond, but all the other stuff they get is they could reboot any of that stuff they had before. And again, they just want you to be on their platform. At the end of the day, everyone's trying to get you on their platform because one, your data is important because your viewing habits matter, Andre. Because whatever you watch, they keep track of it and be like, oh, Andre seems to like these shows. We're gonna make more shows like that. So like all data is
They'd be like, Andre likes these shows. Nobody else does. let's watch what he watches and then shy away from it. Yeah.
well, that too. So like, but again, like data is important. They keep track of everything. Now, what's important in data is now worth more than oil and gold. Like your personal data. So that's what they want. So again, if there's only in like 10 years, there may be just Netflix, Disney, and like Amazon, and that's it. Because
it is funny though to think that we talked about this 7 months ago that Apple was trying to buy the new Bond movie, and they had put $600 million on the table to have it streaming exclusively, and the Broccolis, like Eon, said no. 600 million, and you take that one, and then you know that Amazon paid 8.45 billion, even though again it is kind of crazy. That's how valuable the Bond name is. So
yep. So yeah, I think we can go on and on about
yep
the purchase later as we go closer, and I'll get people's list of movies from the MGM. They go all the way back, like that MGM, like
Casablanca.
1920s, Andre. That's the movies they got access to. They got movies from the 1920s. They're all black and white. But like, if you wanted to, if you were a student of cinema and you wanted to get that stuff, like we talk about their Criterion collection, like they got all this stuff that if they put on and you just want to watch stuff that you never imagined, like that is going to drive you to go to Amazon to like, oh, I'd like to watch.
So as someone that doesn't have Prime, does Prime have like a paid premium service like Disney? Like, would you
no.
So if so basically when after this Bond movie is in the theater, it's going to show up probably on Prime to watch for free.
Like all the other Bond movies.
Well, they
like,
have rental. You can rent movies too.
You can rent
so
it
some movies don't go straight to their streaming. Like
you can rent it. Yeah, you can. They have
Wonder Woman and all that stuff. Like you had to rent it, right?
But eventually it'll go on that platform on Amazon, and they're just gonna have access to it. Whether Amazon has Amazon Music now, they have the Amazon Video, and they have all the like again, compared to the other platforms. If they got all this stuff and they don't change the rates, it's still like $8 a month. It's still cheaper than Netflix by a country mile.
Yeah.
So
I suspect though that they're gonna be pumping that up. It's $79 a year in Canada, right? I suspect that'll pump up to like close to $100.
I don't know. I think they're gonna leave it. I don't think they care.
It's still a better bang for your buck because of the delivery fees being waived and everything else. Like it's still, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So Amazon got money. They're not Netflix. They're not the same. Okay. We're just gonna jump quickly to a couple last topics because wow, we're going long. Who knew? Comic book covers. We're gonna talk about something that I brought up to the group. We all know superheroes are super important. They're characters that drive us to comics, but really villains are the reason why we stick around. Villains are the reason why a hero can elevate to the next level, be renowned. If you look at the Batman book of villains, where is Batman with the Joker? Where is, the Fantastic Four with the Doctor Doom? A great villain really puts it to the next level. So I wanted everyone to share with us on a quick fun sharing their favorite cover of a villain on a comic book, name the artist as well. So John, start us off because again, I think we all got trapped when we see comic covers and then we see something like, oh, maybe this is going to be it. And then all of a sudden the villain's on top and usually the villain has his hero like in peril. But show us, I guess, what is the coolest comic cover that you've seen or you want to share with the people?
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of was a little bit lazy about it, but I picked something more modern. And I think I just wanted to definitely showcase this because this is one of the like current artists that is, I think, extremely clever. And we've mentioned him many times in the podcast before. So I'm gonna just pop it up on screen, and that's Mike Del Mundo. He did this cover for X-Men number 20. Mm-hmm. And for those of you on the audio, it's Mystique with her head in a Xerox machine, photocopying her face, but coming out of printouts of several different characters.
Yep.
So I don't know how he manages to come up with these great ideas all the time, but it's just incredible. Like the kind of like artsmanship. Like this is when you start, when if anyone calls comic art not art, like you show them stuff from Mike, and you can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know how to get it off the screen now.
All right. Well, there we go. That's awesome. And shout out to Deadly Mike out there. Andre, what is the cover that you want to share with us?
All right. So, taking the
I don't know how to get it off here.
For those who are on audio, John keeps zooming up on Mystique's bum.
Struggling.
There we go.
Oh,
All right,
man.
there we go. Okay.
So the topic was the villain and stuff, and I wanted to harken back to, I think villains have to challenge our heroes. They have to instill fear in the audience, and they have to be like this, kind of like this credible threat. And so this cover is going back for me to legitimate fear and panic that I had at this moment, and it's Superman Man of Steel number 19 during the Doomsday period. And if you just look at this cover, the artist is John Bogdanov, I think you pronounce
Bogdanovich, I think, or maybe you're right, Bogdanov.
Yeah. And this is like the first time, like, I'm collecting comics, and just look at Superman's face. He's beaten, he's bleeding from other places, he can barely keep his eyes open. Yet look at Doomsday. Doomsday doesn't look injured. He's at the top, he's bigger, he's glaring with that eye. Like, I was just like, oh my God, like, what is this moment? And I just think that is just the, it just instills a sense of fear in me seeing that moment, seeing that, oh my God, Superman, he's losing, and stuff. So when I think of a classic cover, that's it for me. But again, it's because when I think villain, I think fear and panic, and that one does it for me. So I know that, like, John picked a great one, and there's so many great villain covers out there, but if you can pick one that moves you and just, you're like, oh crap, and again, that's what I love about comics.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Rob?
I went a little bit different. This was an interesting exercise because there are a lot. I mean, my two co-hosts here have amazing covers. And I was like, oh, like there's a lot of Joker covers, that I was like, oh, I really like this. But I went with something completely different. I went with Green Lantern number 85 from way back in the day. I went with this.
You went with drugs as the villain.
I went with drugs as the villain. I know, I did. And it's like, well, what the hell? But this was at a time where comics, like Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil got together, and this is drawn, illustrated by Neil Adams, which is a classic cover. But they got together and said, listen, there is an epidemic happening with youth who are hooked on heroin and everything else. It was a really bad time in the 70s, and they used the comics as a medium to be able to talk about this and get through to kids. And so maybe like,
can you read the cover quickly?
Yeah, it says Green Lantern says you always have all the answers, Green Arrow. Well, what's your answer to that? And Green Arrow's like, my ward is a junkie. And it says DC attacks youth's greatest drug problem, because Speedy is sitting there. He's got you don't have the needle in his arm, but he is just shot up, and he's got the spoon where and you can see the needle tray and everything else. The needle was sitting in it. So Speedy, by his name, just took a big
well, you don't know if he took it or he's planning to take it.
No, he did, because he was shaking and he's holding his arm. So I just took it because I thought that this is one of the times I said I can always go back. I can pull up any villain cover with a Joker or this and that or Lex Luthor. But I took something that I thought was it told a story more than just the story. Just that whole cover explains a hell of a lot that was happening, and it was a snapshot of a very important moment in comics history and what was happening in the world at that point. And so I thought that was, for me, like, I would love to get this comic in my collection, like have it graded, but it's stupid expensive, and it's so
for a very reason, which is the
first cover appearance of drugs as a villain.
yeah, it's a thing. Thank you. Those were all fun. All right, let me jump to the last on topic that I have, which is I like to call, and everyone saw, superior replacements. Everyone knows my love for Dick Grayson as the greatest Batman, way better than Bruce Wayne, 100%. Bruce Wayne's a chump, but Dick Grayson is the best Batman, and throughout comics, he's just a nice dude who has a head on his shoulders, and everyone likes him, and he gets along with everyone. I don't need a brooding Bruce Wayne anymore. It's
I would say
very-
Donna Troy might disagree with you, but
True. Well, Batman has enough of spurn lovers, but let's keep on going. A lot of times comics have done quick replacements when necessary, or interesting storylines where, for example, Dr. Octopus took over the mind of Peter Parker, or Mr. Fantastic took over the body of Dr. Doom. So I wanted to get everyone to give me their best idea and storyline for a superior replacement. So someone taking over the body or taking over the role of another hero, either mind or body, or just because Azrael also took over for Batman at one point. Probably not the best choice.
So this is one of our own creations, or one that already happened?
One of your own creations,
Okay.
whatever you want. So John, I'm looking forward to the wackadoo that you come up with. What do you got for us?
I was definitely trying to come up with something funny, but I couldn't really figure anything out. So they're doing a lot of this kind of in comics recently. So shout outs to the new Wonder Girl series, which features a brand new Wonder Woman type character. So maybe she'll step into the role. But the best thing I could come up with was I really like this character, and I feel like they haven't used her much. And the character that she would be replacing used to be really heavily in the limelight, and he's kind of disappeared right now at this moment.
Mhm.
So maybe they'll bring him back. And I would take Cassandra Cain and have her step into the Deathstroke role. Was that Andre's idea?
How the heck did you take mine?
I don't know. I'm sure Andre's got a better.
Andre's like,
better
"Oh, no."
storyline, but it would just
No,
be
Andre's
something that
done.
maybe snaps her or breaks her. She's the daughter of Slade Wilson and Lady Shiva, I believe. So two of the world's deadliest assassins, and something would turn her back to the bad side and maybe taking over her father's legacy. And everyone knows that she's a very effective fighting, like basically her first language is fighting.
Yeah.
So like I don't know if that's would be on her resume or whatever, but something along those lines. And I think she would make an extremely deadly villain that like even like because Batman's always gone up against Deathstroke. He's like, I don't know if I could beat this guy, right?
Yeah.
So I think everyone that went up against her would be like, I don't know if I can beat this, So they'd have to figure out other clever ways to get them out of the situation. So
Awesome.
I'm
Good
sure Andre
pull.
has a better
Good
storyline.
pull. Andre, do you want me to go to Rob to give you more time?
Yeah,
to
because
ponder?
legit. Let me add a couple things to
Yeah,
to
good.
what
I think
John
I'm just
said,
gonna have a better version.
because no, this is the best things about the Cassandra Cain. So it's not Deathstroke, it's not her father, but it's the assassin Cain and Lady Shiva. And this poor girl was raised as fighting was the only language she knew. So she's illiterate. She can read body language, so she's almost precognitive when she fights.
She's like Snake Eyes. She's mute.
No, she can talk, but she doesn't use language. When she learned language, it actually detracted from her being able to read people. And there was a really cool comic where Batwoman in the new Detective comic run in the New 52 talks to Bruce Wayne about her and says, what's her deal? Like, what can they? And they got to talking, and he's like, I don't want to fight her because I won't be able to beat her. And I think it's really interesting because if you have a character like this, her father did die and she took on the moniker of orphan. But, to John's idea, my idea was that Deathstroke offs her mother. And now she's just basically been like, no, I'm going to fulfill what my parents wanted. She offs Deathstroke. And then how do you beat somebody in a fight who knows what you're going to do beforehand and has no qualms about killing? So I think she's super cool character. She is underused. She is in the Outsiders book right now, and she's going, I think, still by the name of Orphan. But yeah, she was a great Batgirl and a super cool character. But thanks, John, for stealing. Great minds think alike.
Yeah, Rob, what do you got for us as Andre now has to
I now got to think.
He has to go into his mind palace and think of something
people
else.
have to understand out of the thousands of comic book characters and the hundreds of permeations that have happened, these two knuckleheads to come up with the exact same thing. Like, go out and buy your lottery tickets because some shit happened. I don't know what's going on. So I'm going to go back and tie it into something that we talked about earlier this episode, James Bond. I'm going to go, and I don't know if it's happened in the Dynamite comic series because I haven't read it in a number of years.
Jason
but I want to
Bourne
see
as James Bond.
No, Ernst Stavro Blofeld as James Bond. I want him to step into the James Bond role and slowly start to eat away and take apart James Bond's status. I mean, this is a world-renowned spy within the spy community. Start to eat away at his status, having Spectre infiltrate essentially MI6 as Bond, and have it a very slow gestating storyline to which everything that we thought we knew about what was happening in espionage in the world is all crumbling down because of one individual has used this name, it's a reputation by name character, and has completely upended it and broken the trust of all the different agencies in the world, and makes you call into question all the things that James Bond has done in the past. So I would like to see Ernst Blofeld step into the James Bond role. I don't know if you want to do it.
Who is that character?
Ernst Stavro Blofeld.
Face Waterfalls.
Who's that?
Face Waterfalls.
So he is like James Bond's like nemesis. Don't worry about what happened in Spectre about they were related. He is like the Lex Luthor to Superman to Bond Superman. He is arch nemesis.
I was like, who is this character?
Yeah, so Blofeld is the head of Spectre, is the head of this criminal organization that works in the show.
Was in the Spectre movie, which I think
it was, but you would have to actually go like the original Blofeld is much more. Yeah, he was what Dr. Evil was kind of slowly based on, and even what was from what's his face, Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget.
Christoph Waltz played him in the thing, but and then that's why he has that scar across his eye in the movie, and then.
But that was like Donald Pleasance, like I mean Blofeld, even Telly Savalas played Blofeld, so there is a history of actors who played Blofeld way back in the original James Bond.
He's the Moriarty to Sherlock. So that's the comparable. It just great.
But he's only been in one James Bond movie.
No. He's been in a number,
a ton of them. Yeah.
But the most recent, he's only been in Spectre.
Oh, right.
Yep. Okay, Andre, I'm back to you.
All right. So this is kind of hard now because I'm thinking on the fly here, and I want to try and do something that's a little bit more original, not just what's what's been done. And I want to think of somebody that is I like the superior Spider-Man angle. So I'm trying to think of a villain who could step into and replace a hero via a mind swap, a mind switch, so
switcheroo.
It's pretty tough, but let's say, let me take what do you guys want me to do, DC or Marvel?
Image.
Go to Marvel because John just did DC. Go to Marvel. So we got one from me. Rob went off the grid, so he didn't even do comics. So
James Bond.
Sure, I know I did do comics. I said based on the Dynamite.
It's a comic. Okay, so Marvel. So let's take a hero. So who could be a better
version of that thing? Yeah.
Let's take Iron Man's been done because they did do the superior Iron Man, and then they also did Doctor Doom took over as Iron Man before, right? So
that was cool.
What about and we did, Nick Fury has been switched, unfortunately. So let's see who could be a better. Let's take somebody like Mockingbird, right? She's not super fantastic, but she came in She's really good in the Spider-Man series, right? She's a Shield agent and stuff coming back from the dead. So I'd probably do something along the lines of, she's not really a big hero. I can go bigger than Mockingbird.
I got an idea already, but by the time you've already figured this out, Andre, I already got something in the hopper. Come on,
Okay,
buddy.
Go ahead. Yeah, let's hear Stu's. Let's hear Stu's.
I would go back to the default. I love Hercules. I want
Get
Hercules.
out of here with
I
Hercules.
want Hercules to join the Nova Corps. Like that is a fish out of water. I want him to flying around the universe and be like being awesome and being ridiculous, having Nova powers now, and all of a sudden being a space cop. He's truly a fish out of water. All he knows is like Earth, and now he's gallivanting across the galaxy, and he's like, "What is happening? I have no idea what's going on in space." It's the same thing when you took Thing and you threw him on the Guardians of the Galaxy. You want someone who is stuck in Earth, that's all he knows, and he also knows only Greek Greek history, and now you put him in space, and you're like, he's like, I don't understand, like why, like he's wearing a uniform he doesn't like, he's flying around in space, he's talking about Zeus, everyone doesn't know what he's talking about, he's just goofy in space. So that would be my pitch, because the Nova Corps generally, like Richard Rider, they're all very serious and they're cops, but I would want someone that ridiculous to be a space cop, and that's the funniest things. So that would be Hercules in space.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to drop this villain idea. It's getting too hard, but okay. So I'm going to take Alpha Flight. I'm going to take Guardian.
Yep.
All right, and who could make a better version of Guardian? Because
Captain Canuck.
the original was he was a doctor and he was smart and he made his own armor and stuff like that.
And then his wife took over.
And his wife took over as Vindicator. But then I would say I would take Forge from the X-Men, and I would make him Guardian. Now he's not Canadian, but he's still got kind of the Native American roots. I think will fit in with that. He's a genius, so he could build an armored suit that would probably be way more powerful.
Yeah.
And I think he is kind of underused in the X-Men currently because they're on a living island that can make them whatever they want. So I'm putting forward.
They can regrow X-Men.
Yeah, they can regrow X-Men. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay.
Right. I was hoping for something with Fool Killer. Who can take over for Fool Killer?
All right. As we wrap things up,
Fool Killer into Deathlock's body.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cyborg
We're wrapping things
Killer.
up. I want John to give a simple 5-second review of Army of the Dead. Do you recommend watching it? And give me 5 seconds of your reaction to that movie. Go.
Oh, it's hard to say because I've heard so many people not dig it. So if you enjoy zombie movies, zombie video games, and you are okay, or you like Zack Snyder's particular style or brand of movie, then yes, I should watch it.
Yes,
I would watch
Perfect. Done. Andre.
I would say get a bowl of popcorn and just I would say watch it, but you legit have to turn your brain off. Like don't even. You could almost watch this movie without the dialogue, and it would probably be a better movie.
That's a glowing recommendation. Rob.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's on Netflix. You're not paying for anything. Watch it. It's fun. Don't listen to Andre. 5 seconds.
All right, perfect. All right, we're gonna wrap things up. John, Andre, where can they find you guys on the internet and in the desert of the real?
Yeah. So the Instagram and Facebook are popping right now. A lot of people are liking seeing all the products on there and getting links to the website and knowing what we get brand new at the shop. So definitely follow us there. Heroes World Online. Either one will link you to the other and link you to the store. If you're listening to this on audio, Heroes World Podcast, please subscribe. If you're on Spotify, you can get a free Spotify membership. You can listen to the podcast there. You don't have to subscribe to listen to us via Spotify, or you can use iTunes if you have an Apple device. And please give us a subscribe and a 5-star rating if you're on the Apple iTunes. It definitely helps us out a lot.
Awesome. Andre?
Yeah, and we are still open for curbside pickup, and we are doing shipping out if you need anything. And our store is in Markham, Ontario, and we are at Warden and Highway 7. So you could reach out to us, give us a call, give us an email, reach out to us on social media. We are there from Tuesday to Saturday. We take Sunday and Monday off. partly to do this podcast and the other day to just relax. Yeah, but so reach out. We're still getting all new products, as John said. And if you still need a recommendation, you can always ask or give us a phone call. And usually we can get your order packed within the same day, if not a couple of hours. Just depends on where the stock is.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
shoot it. You can shoot us email, ask us questions. I had a gentleman call me the other day and ask about things on the site, and it shipped a couple things out to our friends in Alberta, so that was pretty nice.
Yep. Again, support local if you can. John and Andre are available to ship stuff out. I saw Captain America shield in the store. It looked dope. So anything you can do to help out small business, please do so. And if you cannot, as Andre and John have said in previous, share, like, subscribe, do it in a digital form. Help them out in that capacity if you are unable to do it with monies. So whatever you can do is helpful. It gets more exposure to John and Andre to get their reach, to just for people to know that there's a store, there's a comic book store close to them, even though it's local. So please, whatever you can, thank you and gracias. Rob, tell us what's going on in the Sidekicks show.
Yeah, so we are wrapping up the month of May. Hard to believe that tomorrow is May 31st with our month of Keanu Reeves marathon. So we are finishing with John Wick 3 Parabellum. So definitely go online. It's available at different streaming services. You can watch it tonight if you want to, or sometime tomorrow, and then join us live at 8:00 tomorrow night on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook. It's always a lot of fun on the YouTube comments. Everybody chiming in. We talk about your favorite episode, your favorite kill. We're sadistic that way. And so you can join us there as well. You can find me on Instagram at _905, all spelled out, and my YouTube channel is there as well. So I do some reviews, including linking some stuff back to Heroes World, including, I think last week I just did a quick review of the Dan Jurgens Superman Lois and Clark that kind of bridges that gap for that new Peter Tomasi and Patrick Gleason Superman omnibus that I think is coming in this week.
Yeah, we'll have it this week. Yeah,
so definitely you should review, check that out.
Awesome. So again, thank you for joining us today. Super fun as always. Be safe out there. Enjoy the nice weather. Go for a walk. Goodbye, everyone. See you.
All right. Thank you again, Stu.
All right.
Bobcat, thank you. That's a good one. See you all later.